Wirecon Concreting was established in 2008. We do detailed excavation, formwork, steel fixing and concrete placement for concrete driveways and paving, foundations and slab works, suspended slabs. The bulk volume of our work is residential work. We have moved into commercial work. It's an interesting journey getting into concreting. It wasn't something that I'd thought about at any stage in my life. My mum was an academic and my dad was a tradie. It was always seemed to me that education was really important, but sport was something that I was really good at, so they were the two things that really dominated my life as a kid. Beyond school, I didn't see anything other than going to uni. I expected that. I really just touched base with a friend of mine that I'd grown up through school, and he was studying bioscience at Deakin in Geelong, and it was an easy option for me. So that's what I chose, and that's what I did. 2 years later, I applied for a human movement position at Ballarat and was accepted into that, and at the same time was drafted to the Carlton Football Club and spent 12 months there. Right towards the end of that time, I got injured and there was a few bit of contract things going on, and my father was diagnosed with cancer at that time. And as they were delisting me, it was a choice that I made to move back to Geelong. I didn't start in concreting until I was 28. So going from training 3 hours a day for sport and moving into concreting, it was an easy transition. And the physical part was what I loved. It actually made me feel like I was getting what I needed physically out of a day. My first experience in concreting was with a volume builder concreter. So, you know, we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. A couple of years after that, I moved into working with someone who did residential slabs, did commercial work and did a lot of different work. When I moved on from there and started a family and buy my own house, I was ready to transition into taking charge of what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. As I was transitioning out of working from a previous employer, I'd started reaching out looking for work. A contact that I knew that I was concreting, and he asked me to quote my first job. It was a massive job. It was about 500 square metres of paving area for like a sports court. I said, yes, I can do it, even though I didn't know if I could, because I thought, well, we'll make it happen. So put the quote together, won the quote, didn't have any materials, didn't have any tools, and had about 2 weeks to get the stuff together. So organised a ute, organised a trailer, got everything we need and got the first job done. At the end of the first year, when we had sort of turned over about $500,000 and we had 4 employees, plus a few casuals who were helping us consistently, we doubled our growth the following year. Year 3, we grew by $500,000 again. And then into year 4, our first 6 months, we turned over $2 million. And everything was under my control. The financial control, the employee control, and it was out of control crazy. We picked up a couple of big contracts. We didn't do our due diligence well enough, and we ended up doing $200,000 of work that we didn't get paid for. And that was a mighty big, that was tough. It was really tough. After that hit that we took, we had to make some really big decisions. We're at 25 up to 29 employees, and we sliced it back to where we were at year 2. We couldn't do anything else because our cash flow meant that we actually couldn't do any more. I can tell you there was times where I was just like, why am I doing this? Because it was really hard trying to find that money and feel like that your work you were doing every day was just going nowhere. So I think the next few years, from sort of 2011 and 12 right through to 2016, we really just treaded water. I sort of grew a little bit, but we sort of held numbers around year 3. Once we cleared our debts, it was a really big turning point for us. It didn't change the fact that I'd felt like I'd been wrung out a million times. All that time was really tough, physically and mentally. It was tough, you know, working just to get back to a level of 0. And my wife knew that. She recognised that I'd really focused all my energy into the business and the mental side of that, and lost my way with how connected I was with my physical side. So she bought me a Christmas present, which was a reconnection with my physical side to do the Kokoda Trail. The important thing about Kokoda for me was things aren't really that hard if I change the way that I look at them. On returning from Kokoda, through the excitement, I was starting to talk to a tradie friend of mine, and he put me on to the Game Changers.
When Haami first joined the Game Changers or reached out to us, what I noticed was something that I noticed with a lot of tradies that we speak to, And that is that they're quite good at their trade, but they're not very good at running a business. They haven't necessarily been taught how to put all the things in place to run a profitable business that ultimately works without them. For Haami, he was spending a lot of time doing quotes and estimating, a lot of time managing his staff, trying to manage projects, and it wasn't necessarily his core skill set. So they weren't making anywhere near as much profit of what they could, but more important than anything, he was working huge hours just to keep the wheels going. With Haami and a lot of other traders we work with is that there's often a block around the mindset aspect. Is that they have this belief that they have to be doing everything or that nobody could be quite doing it as good as what they could. There's often a lot of sabotage that gets created because the owner is so fixated on the way that they identify themselves in relation to the business that if they're not the ones physically out there, in Haami's case, like pouring the slabs and trailing them off, they don't get the same sense of fulfillment and satisfaction as what they do. So something we've helped Haami to really harbour and create is number one is to constantly up-level his mindset. So every stage of business requires you to think and act a little bit different than the stage before. And so the business will never outgrow you. So in order to keep growing as a business, you need to keep growing as a business owner. We helped on implementing the processes and systems that allowed him to feel comfortable and satisfied to step out of first the organisation, operation, scheduling aspect, which meant that he could take on board more business because the delivery of that business or the delivery of those slabs and the concrete jobs he was doing were a lot more effective and smoother. Then we helped him to also outsource and hire in someone to do the estimating, which meant that he was able to add over $1 million in additional revenue in less than 12 months. But it also meant that he was able to get back more than 40 hours of his time spent a week, which could see him start to put that time into investing in his team, investing in his guys, investing in actually growing the people that are out there on the jobs doing the work for the clientele.
In the last 12 months, we've grown to 2.5. We're in a much stronger position, but the management of our team and the management of our work is not so much in my hands. So we know things are getting done and that I can focus on making sure that the job that we get on the ground is to the standards we expect. For me right now, the big goals for my business, it's not necessarily financial, but it's about how much impact we can have on people's lives. So we want our employees to come in, we want them to be trained properly. We have big goals to make sure that people perceive our role in the industry in a different way and see us in a light that puts us up the top. But I think the really critical thing is that our employees buy into our growth hinges on them. I think that's the key learning. I don't have to do it all. Get a team to help you do it if that's where you want to go.
It's been incredible to watch Haami over the last 12 to 18 months. He's willing to show up, he's willing to implement, he's willing to be okay to be uncomfortable. And from what we've seen in a very short period of time, for me, I think that very, very easily in the next 2 to 3 years, Haami could take his business to that 8+ figure mark.